The Three of Discs is known as Works, and this is actually quite a straightforward card. We're going to see some of that success in the world of manifestation actually showing itself to be born within the physical world. Over on the Rider-Waite card, we can see a harmonious image with this trinity of the pentacles, therefore representing the physical and spiritual building blocks of the world, and the sculptor of whom is actually building this castle, or this edifice, and holding the blueprints of what is to be built is a monk and a nun, of course showing a divine and spiritual male and female attribute. On the Tree of Life we are in Binah, and this is a symbol that shows up quite prominently on this card because Binah is that sea, that divine mother, that womb of creation. And because it's Binah in Isaiah, it's actually the physical birth this time of something that actually exists that we can touch and brush up against, so to speak, and so it's literally given birth to a physical form. Astrologically, it is Mars in Capricorn. This is actually really good because Mars gives that energy and that drive, that burning passion that we've spoken about. You're not really going to build anything of great wonder without having a burning passion to see it actually take shape. And this is mixed with Capricorn, of which supplies things such as the actual practicality to make it happen, the ability and the knowledge to build it, and the ambition to see it through. And so they work really well together. They are constructive, and they show a good balance of activity and energy. And so that's why sometimes this card is seen as a good omen for some type of gamble, some type of investment, basically putting money into your business. It's a good time to do so because you are likely to make the right calls, of which in themselves will have to go through all that procedure of manifestation, and eventually, of course, if you've made the right calls, you will be rewarded for having made them because they will show up in your life. And that's what this card is all about. The central shape, of course, upon this card is the pyramid, and we're looking down upon the pyramid. It's almost as if it's pointing skywards directly into our consciousness when we look at it. And the pyramid is actually floating and perfectly balanced upon this sea in the background, and it's a grey colour is the sea. And this of course is Binah, and it's said that this represents a melting of ice, and so the ice has melted away, allowing this pyramid to actually come to the surface. So we are to imagine here that it was below the surface within the womb of creation, and then when the ice melted, the waters of life flowed, and the pyramid was literally born out into the earth. And so together, this sea and this pyramid represent something of the Egyptian creation myths, specifically that of Nu and Benben. And so what we can see is that we had this state of chaos, a kind of inert vibrational oneness, where everything that could be existed in its potential form, but was not yet given physical form. And so, if you like, you could say that the earth was void and without form, which is something that we have heard before. And so from out of these primordial waters came this mound known as Benben, the primordial mound. This is the first thing of which arose from those waters. And it's said in some of the stories that there was a lotus flower on this, and when it blossomed, out emerged the god Ra, or Atum Ra. And this is all part of a larger Heliopolitan form of Egyptian religion and creation myth. But of course what we see on the card is the birth of form. And so this Benben, this primordial mound, could in some ways represent two things. It can be the first thing of which is born there upon the waters of the earth, and also can represent a pregnant earth in itself, that pyramid shape rising out of the ground. And so it has a potential within it for, of course, the cycle and circle continuing, and more life being born there from within it. And indeed we can actually see around our pyramid upon the card 3 wheels. So it really does represent a balance and a harmony there, and you can see that the pyramid is perfectly balanced. If it wasn't, it would be tipping back into the water, and so it's perfectly balanced. And yet these wheels are keeping it balanced and keeping it floating upon the water. And these bring us to a different type of symbology entirely. These are, first and foremost, wheels of Dharma. And so this is a Buddhist concept, and we can see in the Sanskrit word Dharma that it literally means a supporter, something that takes the load of a weight, a bearer. It means to maintain and keep what is established and firm. And so that's literally what we're seeing on the card. They are supporting this pyramid, and they are keeping it balanced and keeping it, of course, able to float upon this primordial sea. As actual wheels of Dharma, they are quite esoteric. The wheels of Dharma were said to be set into motion upon the first sermon preached by the Buddha, and they represent the Dharma of the Buddha. And this is a difficult concept to actually put into English. It's one of those things where we don't really have words for it. It can represent something akin to the correct conduct and virtue, the sort of right way of living as connected with a cosmic law and order. And so thelemically we could look at it like true will is that cosmic law and order, our actual purpose of manifestation, and that if we are going towards our true will, we're going towards light and love and all these type of concepts which are often quite mistranslated and misinterpreted within the wider kind of New Age movement. And yet, of course, to set that wheel in motion represents a shift in the consciousness of mankind. It represents a new type of understanding and a coming into wisdom, which is something that we saw on the previous card, for instance. And so everything is seen to start making sense. The wheels have been turned, and we come to self-realization that we have manifested this thing ourselves when we're looking at it with the card through that coming together and correct application of universal forces. And so that's the other thing that these 3 wheels can actually represent. They are said to represent the 3 gunas, of which again is a Sanskrit word, of which means a particular quality or attribute. And so the 3 gunas are essentially the essential nature of the universe, the attributes that bring and hold the manifestation firm and support it. And so we can see on these very small on the card there is also symbols and elemental symbols on them. So the one on the left at the bottom has upon it the symbol of salt, and this can represent in the 3 gunas tamas, and this is the darker side of things, and can also, at least in a more positive attribute, be that primordial vibrational state like we saw with the Egyptian mythology. And so this could be water and the sea and Binah as well. And yet purely within the gunas it can be like the shadow side of things in some way as well, and so it can be the attribute of the night. And in terms of our mind, that almost going back to the swords cards, it can be sadness and hurt and conflict and that sort of thing. And this is balanced over with the one on the right at the bottom, of which shows within it the symbol of sulphur. And so if we had water before, this is now going to be fire. And so within the 3 gunas this is rajas, of which is that state of action and movement, such as we saw with the influence of Mars upon this card as well. And so this may be that burning passion, that determination to create those things of which we want, the longing to actually see something come into manifestation. Together they can of course be the sun and the moon, and of course that masculine and feminine, which we saw back on the Rider-Waite card as well. And of course we also saw on the Rider-Waite card a sculptor, the 3rd character, and so the one upon the top, which has upon it the symbol of Mercury, brings us to the element of air and the guna of sattvas. And this is the important one because this is the state of harmony of those 2 brought together. And so this is actually the one that those practicing yoga would strive towards through their meditations. They would want to create a balance between these 2 energies so that they could reach a satisfaction a sense of love and a release from the elements of the physical world, releasing themselves, of course, into samadhi and enlightenment. In that regard, the element here of sattva could be referred to as the golden balance, or the middle pillar, of which we see in the Western mystery traditions, and may be described as the balance of mind and magic. So it really is hermeticism and, in some regards, alchemy. Now, Crowley goes a little bit further with this as well in the Book of Thoth, where he refers to the wheels upon the base of the pyramid as Aleph, Mem and Shin, of which are the three mother letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and concerned with, again, the creation of everything of which we see around us. This kind of ties it all together in a way, because the first letter, Mem, in Hebrew is water, and then we have fire, represented by Shin, and air, represented by Aleph. And so it's basically what we've had as well with the gunas and with the wheels of Dharma. For these letters may also represent an eternal cycling as seen with the seasons. And so we may see summer being linked with fire, and of course winter with water and ice, and spring returning to air. And so they can represent all of the long journey from that state of chaos, that state of vibrational potential, into that manifested world of which we are actually seeing now. And so when you get this card, it's showing that it is happening now. You are actually starting to see a good outcome for all of that long journey into manifestation. It's finally showing up, that things are actually in balance, and you're starting to reap what you have sown, so to speak. And so it's a good card, this. It shows you're living a good, balanced life, you're on the right track, and all of that work that you've put in before to get to that point where you are right now is finally starting to show itself to you in quite wonderful, physical and real ways.